Good afternoon, LEC community. Thank you so much for being with us this afternoon for us, actually nighttime for Lily, who's with us today. We are here with Lili De Larratea. I am so excited to bring Lily here with us. We were just chatting about how she brings a totally new perspective to our show and to our organization that we haven't had as of yet with the work that she's doing and the where she is. So, Lily, without further ado, do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the introduction and the invite to be here. So I'm originally from Spain. I was born in Barcelona, and I'm in the UK now, and I came to the UK as an exchange student when I was during my university studies, and then I kind of stayed since. So I've been here for about 20 years now. And I studied design, and here I studied product design for sustainability. And the course was very much about learning through doing. Mm-hmm. And that kind of was an eye-opener. So I stayed and I finished here, and I kind of stayed on as well.
Yeah, so you have had quite a journey to where you are, right? From moving from Spain to the UK. And like I said to our viewers, having you be with us from the UK is very new for us. Y'all, for you to know, it is 10 p.m. where Lily is right now. It's 4 o'clock where we are. So Lily, thank you so much for being with us. I know it was a lot to ask to have you stay up this late, unless you're a night owl like me, and I would still be up. So,
don't worry, a little bit. The Spanish side of me keeps me awake.
Yeah.
The other one says, "Make a cup of tea," and what they do here.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about what you do kind of on a day-to-day. I know you're with BDP, right? That's your job, right? And but you're particularly working on a design thinking product and education. So if you want to tell us more about kind of your role and what you do.
Okay, so I work for quite a large architectural company, and I'm a wayfinding designer, and I've been doing that for quite a few years. And for those of you who don't know about wayfinding, which is quite a new discipline, so we look at spaces and how people navigate through different spaces and environments and what they need to get to where they're going. So it can be a critical environment like a hospital or an airport where people have to get to their appointment or have to get to their plane. And what do they need in place to get there? What's the experience like? How are they feeling? How are they thinking? What are they paying attention to? And it's analyzing and studying all that and then producing whatever it is that they need. So it could be information, maps, stuff, showing them the way, something digital, an app on their phone. It depends on the environment. So I do that on one side. And then sort of on the other one, for many years, I'm looking this way because I have this here, which I'm going to talk about. But when I did my studies, I kind of discovered that what we do as creatives and as designers has an impact, not only on the environment, but social impact and economic impact, and we have a responsibility. And when I furthered my studies, I realized that there wasn't many examples or many methods to use to learn about this and put it into practice. And I felt the way education was working was very one way. And I started working on researching on alternative education methodologies. And it was very aimed and targeted at design students to embed this sustainability thinking. And from that, I started collaborating with a nonprofit who were promoting designers who were doing good in general. and then I created this tool. It started as a collaboration, and then I sort of took it on my own, and I created this tool called Play Rethink, and I developed it as a sort of game training tool and launched it. That was now 2007, and it's very much based on design thinking and taking people from being creative and discovering their creativity to actually uh, identifying something they can improve in their communities or in the environment or schools, anywhere, and then actually giving them that empowerment that they can actually do something and make a difference. And it's I made it into a product
Mm-hmm.
that you can carry and send, and um, yeah.
Yeah, that is really cool.
And it's basically a very simple brainstorming sort of tool, but that you can use to promote collaboration, and it not only empowers the person playing to realize that, oh, I'm creative, or I can have ideas, and actually ideas that solve something. So you kickstart your problem solving skills, but
Mm-hmm.
also working with others and sharing your thoughts, because we are taught to compete all the time, and then to keep your ideas for yourself, and then they don't have this opportunity to grow sometimes. I mean, if you have $1 million idea, maybe yes, register it before you share it, but otherwise it's very likely that if you share what you're thinking about, it will grow thanks to other people's inputs.
Yeah.
So you get these cards with a brief, and it makes you rethink everyday objects.
Mm.
So this one is somebody rethinking a clothesline and making it into a kite.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is to let the imagination go as well, so then you can bring it back.
Yeah. When you and I first talked, I didn't know what our conversation would be like because I've only lived in America. And so I was like, well, in America, our school system is very structured. Like we have to, historically, we've sat down at a desk and read a book and read out of a textbook, right? In the last maybe 10, 15, 20 years, we have moved toward more of like flexible seating and design thinking, right? Or maybe in the last 10 years in particular, design thinking has become more popular in schools, which is great, right? And so I was curious when you and I talked about schools in the UK and schools in Spain, and if that was the case there as well. And you said it is, right?
Uh, my experience, definitely. So I went to school in Spain, and I was actually punished for being creative.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was one of the things that, because for me, being creative was my way out. I was quite a reserved child, quite shy, and I was doing a lot of collage. We had this school diary, where we had, you have the week and you write all your homework. And as soon as the week had finished, I would cover it with collage, with whatever had happened that week, things I had kept, and everything was sort of stuck there in a beautiful way, I thought. And I was just using different materials and doing all sorts of things, and I'd stay up until 2 or 3 in the morning doing this,
Yeah.
and then go to school the next day and show it to my friends and sort of pass it around.
Mm-hmm.
And then the teachers, if they found it, they would tell me off for it.
Mm-hmm.
This is school diary. This is not how you're supposed to use it. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, why does that matter? It's previous weeks, I'm still using it. So it was very, in my school, we didn't really have design and technology or music. Yeah, we had a little bit, but not really.
Yeah. So and you opened my eyes to the fact that this happens in other places of the world, right? I think um, we can be really judgmental of like the upbringing and of the school system, especially in the role that I'm in, right? I think in a restorative mindset, like what can be better, what can be better, and like in an advocacy mindset, what could be better, what could be better, right? And we, yeah, it's been very much like here's the linear way that school looks. You know, this is how you dress, this is how you talk, this is how your presentations have to look like this. And when you have creativity like that, literally in your case, it's like falling out of the seams, like falling on it, right? And that is stifled in a lot of our educational experiences, right? So design thinking in and of itself is changing that, right? And your product that you developed is doing that as well. Now, the product you developed, is it meant for schools, or could a parent, do it with a kid as well?
Yeah, so it was made with students, university students in mind, because that's what I was at the time, and that's where I saw the gap. But it's very, I mean, I as soon as I launched it, and I made, with the help of a family friend who's a learning consultant and was following my progress. She actually invested some money and said, I'm really interested in this. If you need help, I'll help you. And then I produced 500 boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know about business or marketing. I was just like, I have these. I know people would use it because I exhibited this in different formats at the London Design Festival, like for 2 or 3 years, and I had a lot of feedback. So it changed based on that, and that's design thinking, right? You go out, you show what you've done, and then you change according to how people would use it. And I had people from companies and from universities and schools saying, I would use it, I would use it. And I was saying, okay, brilliant, I'll make it into a product. And I put it on the website, and then I was lucky. I was quite good at networking at the time, and because I had something to say, so I was like out there going to events talking about my project, and I got a few reviews online and then word of mouth, and people kind of found it, and sometimes big companies bought it and used it internally, and parents did as well, teachers. I did workshops as well in different countries and in different languages as well, which is quite a challenge. Um, yeah, but alongside this, I was always also freelancing and working as a designer. So
Mm-hmm.
it was, yeah.
Yeah, well, I did put the link in the comments to your website. That's it, right? Playrethink.com.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. No, I want our educators to take a peek at this thing, because um, I've been using the word revolutionary a lot, but I'm being intentional about when I use it, right? So revolutionary to the way we've historically done school, right? And historically not just done school, but historically have done learning, right?
Yeah.
Where there's one expert, and the expert is usually the teacher, or the expert is usually the parent, right? And they feed you information, and you're supposed to soak it in, and there's only one way, or there's a black and white, right? Like there's only these two ways, these binary ways of understanding things, or the way that concepts work. And this design thinking, um, you know, way of teaching and learning kind of debunks that. So to kind of go into your journey of how you got here, tell us, what's your leadership story? Whether it's something about your upbringing or your journey as a student, as a professional, what do you feel to credit for where you are today?
So I guess I have a lifelong learning side of me, which I think comes from my mother, and she was always, you have to study, and she's always studied and learned languages and had this passion for meeting people in different cultures. And then my dad's side was more entrepreneurial, and he was like, go out there and learn to do things, and earn a living, kind of thing. And I've always tried to do both at the same time, which is really difficult. But I do have this entrepreneurial side, I think, coming from my dad. And because he used to say things like, you only, like holding a toothpick, you only need to invent something useful like this, and and the people are using it by
Mm-hmm.
the billions. And I think that's kind of got me into problem solving. What can I do to solve something? But when I was at school and I was being sort of doing my creative stuff, I think when I was young, I wanted to be a teacher. It was clear, I wanted to teach Spanish grammar, Spanish literature. And then for some reason, maybe I didn't like my teaching styles.
Mm-hmm.
I changed into being a lawyer for a while. So I was going completely different. And then one of my classmates, when I was 15, came to me out of the blue and said, this thing you're doing, pointing at my collage and stuff. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, you can earn a living being creative like that. I was like, really? Doing what?
Mm-hmm.
And I got home and I was like, I've been told this by my classmate. And, what can I do? What can I study? Design. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
um, and I do believe that everyone's creative, but, you have to, sometimes you need help to bring it out and, empower you to do that and believe that you are. Yeah, so that was quite a big part of it. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, and then arriving to the UK, and, I didn't really speak English that well. So it took me a while to understand everything that was being said and that kind of thing. But when I learned about the sustainability thing, I was so clear about it that, I was just like, okay, I have a mission. So I kind
Mm-hmm.
of followed that.
Tell me about that, the sustainability piece of what you do, kind of more as your job, right?
Um, yeah, so not as much as I would like to, I think. But yeah, because when we say, well, sustainability is used in many different ways and sometimes not in the right way. But it's not just to do with the environment, it's also to do with emotional sustainability and social.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I think for me that was very important to know what anything you produce or come up with might have an impact, and it's about doing the thinking beforehand, not doing something and going, oh, this happened. And I think that's design thinking, really, although at the time I didn't know it was design thinking. But yeah, it's sort of thinking of the whole life cycle of what you're doing, and then making decisions to minimize any impact, any negative impact. So this tool, all the briefs are based on sustainable design or eco design, and it's just there to plant a seed to get you thinking differently about things you're familiar with, and then hopefully inspiring you to be more entrepreneurial about it.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you mentioned the toothpick, right? And your dad saying like something this, what we would consider maybe simple or small, right? Um, change changed the world. Like it really did. The concept of a toothpick is so widely used and known, right? It came from one person or a group of people's idea, right? Um, I think about parenting. I know, this is a lot of our audience is, well, educators and teachers, right? But I also think on a parenting note, how scary, I'm a newish mom, and how scary it is for me to just like, okay, go try it, like just go try it. He's only 10 months, but
No.
um, when he wants to do things, and just being, I as a teacher, I knowing design thinking, I knowing how good it is for the brain to explore and ask questions and be inquisitive and wonder and be curious, right? My mom will come over and be like, no, 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 don't do that. Like, no, 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 don't. Like, she does a lot of that. Like, no, no. And then this weekend, I had to tell her, like, Mom, let him explore it, like, yeah, we know all of the really wrong things that can happen if he plays with that or if he does that, right? But there's also this fostering exploration and creativity and like my big thing is inquisitiveness, right? Like asking more and more and more questions and more questions, because the only way that our world has evolved in the way that it has, whether that's with technology or transportation or infrastructure, has been people asking questions or destroying things and creating them again, right? um, Unfortunately, our schools are very, very busy, right? I think
Mhm.
that's one of the struggles of our schools, that keep us from using design thinking more often, is how much curriculum there is to teach. Like there's a timeline, and you have to get this all done before the state tests, and it's very structured and rigid, right? And it leaves little room for like go go do it, go ask questions, right? Go make mistakes. Some teachers in our community are really, really good at that, so it is possible. But in the grand scheme, where we live in a very, what's that called, like a fast
Paste.
fast paced society, that's like, no, we don't have time for that. We don't have time to go explore. We don't have time to be creative. Like we need a product right now. um
Yeah.
So I love the concept of design thinking. I'm sure along the way there have been some hurdles, in your career or perhaps in launching your product. Any hurdles that you'd like to share with us?
I have had hurdles, yes. um, so from being told not to do it, and having to, you just constantly have to believe in yourself and what you're doing, because some people will come along and say, this is just a game, or it's the way they might refer to it, and you're like, okay, but it's my baby. Can't talk about it like that. But yeah, I used to be a member of a co-working space many years ago, which was mainly for social enterprises, and they put me forward for the BBC was filming a feature, asking a new entrepreneur if it was easy to get funding in the UK for a new business, and they had, I think you have their Dragon's Den, or you have something similar there. Dragon's Den, where you go and pitch. Anyway, they had one of the guys that used to be one of the Dragon's Den here, on the program. They had pre-recorded me, so I was just talking about this project and about empowering creativity and blah 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 for a few seconds, and then they asked him, "So, what do you think of this?" And the guy said, "Oh, I have nothing to say." And I was like, "Wow." Then, I was quite annoyed by it, to say the least. But then the guy went on, and the following year, he actually started a fund for, like, an institute for creative businesses. So I've always been tempted to go back and say, I was a creative business, why didn't you understand me? And I think that was quite a barrier. It was how to explain what I was doing when people were not talking about it. It wasn't a thing. Sustainability wasn't a thing. Design thinking wasn't a thing. I didn't call it design thinking either. I was like, so I have this tool, that trains you to think differently. And they were like, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But then some people saw it and saw a world of possibilities, right? And that was amazing.
I just realized, I mean, you said that you would just, develop this in college, and you said that was 20-ish years ago, right? I mean, you're right. In the early 2000s, in the late 90s, the early 2000s, what design thinking wasn't even a thing.
No,
I didn't
no.
even, I didn't even put two and two together. Like, yeah, that was revolutionary in that time.
So I launched this in 2007, but I had been testing
Yeah.
it, for 3 years before that. And it started as a big table. It was an interactive installation, and you span the top, and you got a color. It was a bit playful, and a lot of people sat down and came up with beautiful ideas. And that's when people were saying, can you make it portable? Because it was this 2-meter table, and I was like, yeah, I don't see myself going in the tube with this.
Mm-hmm.
in the subway, as you say there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's. I mean, re- can I call it rejection? Right, like the rejection that comes from being an entrepreneur and from being an innovator. Right, like you're being innovative um, at that time, and even a little bit now. Design thinking is catching on to schools lately, but it's still not widely used. It's still very much, I tell you what to do, as a teacher, as an expert, as a parent, and then you go do what I told you to do, right? It's funny we're having this conversation now because our organization is collaborating with a local school who has adopted a design thinking curriculum. Um, and they're going to help us solve a problem. And the problem is, why are Latinos not choosing education as a career? So that's the question. And I met with the group today, and I said, whatever you want to do to answer the question, you go do it. And it's so funny because their teacher said, they're uncomfortable. They want more guidance. And I said, I want them to just go figure it out. However you want to answer the question. But even students, even people in schools still are like, wait, what do you want me to do? Who do you want me to talk to? What should I say? What do you want it to look like? I'm like, go, just go do it. It's still uncomfortable even for
Mm.
this generation of students. Now there's obviously a problem you're wanting to solve, right? Like, what was the problem that just was so in your face at this moment when you began developing this, that you decided to do it?
So one was the way we were being taught, and I actually learned more from because this was I was doing a master's by then, and there was 3 people doing my master's, and we learned more from each other than from the teaching because it was such a new subject. There weren't that many experts teaching it, so we learned more from each other. We became really good friends, and we shared everything, and yeah, we inspired each other. And that was one side of things. The other side of things was the learning through doing, and I wanted people to experience what I had experienced, which was through doing and through discovery, you you find your own empowerment to, when you realize you can create things and help others in some way, um, you you feel really empowered. And the other one was about learning about um, the impact of your choices, because design traditionally is somebody at a desk drawing, say a chair, and not thinking about what will happen in 15 years when this chair is not being used, or or how is it made and who's making it, and you know so many questions that now we're asking, but before it was 1 or 2 people at the desk, not just thinking, I'll make it really nice or ergonomic or
Yeah, well, that's a big part of where that sustainability comes in, right? Where we have to think about our resources, our world's resources, and where will we be in 10, 15, 20, 30, 50, 100 years, and how will this product be impacted, whether it's a product or a thing or an idea, right?
Mhm.
um, you think about technology and how much it's developed, just, I mean, on a daily basis you're getting new tools, new ways to engage with people, new ways to communicate. And so that's really, now that I'm saying it out loud, like, design thinking has always really been a concept, like, since inventors have invented. you know
Mhm.
Design thinking has been a thing. Go out there, play with it, break it, make it again, ask questions, wonder. It makes me think of, like, Frankenstein, right? And how people thought he was just this mad scientist, and the doctor, right? How he was this mad scientist, and it was strange and it was weird and it was out of the ordinary, but it's really the way that we learn best is by doing and making mistakes and asking lots of questions.
And understanding what people need.
Mm-hmm.
Because in school we get marked by how analytical we are,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't get taught how to question things.
Yeah.
So how can you be analytical if you don't understand how to be analytical?
And actually we're told a lot not to question, right? We're told we're
Yeah.
told a lot, like that's just how it is. I don't know. That's just how it is. That.
Imagine, yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
the minute we start questioning history, other
Yeah.
things
Oh,
come up.
yeah. We are learning that in 2021 that people are uncomfortable with us asking questions, with kids asking questions, right?
Yeah. So that was one of the reasons. It was to learn
Mhm.
to question, and my starting point was start with something familiar, like an everyday object that most people use, and then link it to a wider world issue.
Mhm.
So say you have to rethink a toaster, then you start questioning the toaster. Why is my toast getting burnt every time? Is it my fault or the toaster's fault? Or and then you link it to maybe electricity or renewables or food, or so you go from micro to macro,
Mhm.
and then hopefully people made those connections and then remember that and then use it to question things later on.
Mhm. And you'll have to go back. You'll have to go backwards too sometimes, right? When that in that process, like going backwards and learning more so that you can move forward. Um, it's making me just think so much about how that's not what the typical classroom looks like even today. That we, like you said, we tell kids don't question it. Like this is just what it is. Um, don't question so much about our existence, about humanity, about relationships and community, and yeah. So a lot of can of worms there. My
So,
next question. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, no, I was going to say, so one of the ideas of for this tool was was inspired in round tables, where everybody sees each other and everybody can have a say and share, and it starts with a wheel and spinning a wheel, which is a very it's a play element. It's a very simple play element, but it means it represents that we're all equal. So whenever I run workshops, everybody has to input into the process. Everybody has to have a role and have something distinguishable in the final presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
That's another thing that that we don't foster in kids enough. Actually, Edgar, our CEO founder, and I had this conversation today because he said, I think your job is harder than mine. And I said, I think your job is harder than mine. And then we kind of came to the summary that his strengths lend well to what he does on a day-to-day basis, and my strengths hopefully lend well to what I do on a day-to-day basis. So in that wheel, where everyone's going to kind of have an equal part of this problem solving, hopefully you can capitalize and foster on the strengths that you have. We don't do that in schools, right? We tell kids that they have to conform to these strengths, or they have to conform to this way of thinking, or this way of presenting, right? How many times have we been told your presentation can only be a PowerPoint, or your presentation, your final product can only be an essay, your final product can only be whatever, right? Instead of telling kids like, put this in your brain and then you tell us however you want to produce it, right? Thank you, Marisol. Marisol's with us. Lily, I'm going to pull up her comments. Hi, Marisol. Thanks for being with us. She says, I love that Miss Lili De Larratea seems so calm and the amount of years working on this and how many others are involved and how she talked about even changing paths. It's refreshing to hear this takes time. Lili, it takes time, right? It takes time. Tell us your response to Marisol and how that takes time.
Well, thank you, Marisol, for your message. Um, it takes time because you're also finding your own way. It's not like you have a clear path that you're following. You're also learning from others and changing things. And then the world is changing um,
Yep.
rapidly in the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Um, and then you have to survive while you're not making money. You have to do other things, and which is what I was doing as well. So now I'm trying to make this into a digital product, but I'm trying to figure out first find teachers to work with, and apply design thinking to my own project and learn from them what they need and if it's useful in the format it needs to change. So it may evolve into a very different tool or app or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, we would. I mean, our community would love to stay with you on that journey and just see where this goes. See how it changes once you get teachers involved and students involved, and you know, asking them questions and having them ask you questions, right? Um, it sounds like, Marisol, you talked about how it takes time, and there's more now. There's more time to be invested still. So, what keeps you going? What energizes you to continue to do this work?
So I had a little bit of a break, mainly because I didn't know where I was going with this. But in the last year, I think it's the right time to to do this kind of work. And I was very happy. Actually, I have to give a mention to Devon Teran because he's the one that put us in touch, and we met serendipitously and started talking about design thinking by chance. And yeah, now is the time. And then he told me about all these programs and projects happening in Kansas City, and which I've not heard of, that so many things are happening and so many organizations are pushing for that in schools. And especially what you're doing, trying to inspire Latino kids to become educators. That's amazing. That's really inspiring. So it feels like now is the time, and I have to get back on that wave. And I think I can find more people that speak that language. So it's a very exciting time now.
Yeah, I'm excited for you because if there's ever been a time where people are thinking outside of the box, it's right now, right? Because people are like, we had a global pandemic. How are we going to stay in touch with each other? We had a global pandemic. How are we still going to go to school? We had a global pandemic. There are organizations who are talking about, like, do we even need an office space? Like some organizations have gone, LEC included, to like mostly virtual. So now is the time for it to be like, forget how we've done things in the past. Like there's room for innovation and new ideas, and people are hungry for that, like next, like what's happening next. And I mean, politically, right? So the society is changing, and so much is going on around the world that is making us kind of ask how to be as innovative as possible, how to do new things. So you're absolutely right. I think it is a good time to start back up.
And especially, sorry, young people, they actually really want to do something, but they might not have the tools or the support, or they might not know they have options. And part of getting them to go through the different creative exercises is to inspire them and make them realize that they have options and they can achieve things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, I think probably every generation gets more and more innovative as they come, right? But this generation of students, they have seen the world in such a different way than you and I, right? With the pandemic or um, with virtual learning, and that so many new ideas are going to come from this, and that's exciting. From the really difficult things that have come from this, um, there's some silver lining there. It's thinking outside of the box, that's exciting. If the kind of on our to wrap up the conversation, and just your passion and your drive and all of that, if you had one thing that you wanted everyone that you serve to walk away with, whether it's everyone who uses your product or who you come into contact with, if you wanted them to walk away with something, what is that?
So I guess is the realization that they they can change things for the better. They have the power to do it themselves and to be creative and become problem solvers. And I believe that links to mental health, because if you learn to question things from a mindset of what can I do to improve it, you're I think it's going to help your mental health, because you get used to thinking of the positive things you might be able to do. Because especially during the pandemic, I think a lot of people have become quite negative and quite fearful, and probably lots of negative thoughts going around. And yeah, it's that empowerment of I am creative and I can look around and help somebody or something to be better.
Yeah, that means a lot, what you just said, right? You use the word empowerment, and I think it's a lot of what our organization hopes to do as well, right? Is just give people space to learn and explore and make mistakes and laugh and have fun. But yeah, that empowerment piece that is missing for a lot of people, like you said, especially these days. These are very um, isolating, isolated days, and humans aren't meant to be alone, right? And so absolutely, that empowerment piece is huge. Well, Lili, anything else you'd like to share with us before we let you go?
I'm glad I'm part of your network now, and I'd love to know how it goes with working with young people and inspire them to be educators. And I just haven't heard that as a concept, so I'm very, very intrigued and inspired by it. And anything I can do to support that, or yeah, if anyone wants to chat to me about this tool or anything else that may be useful, I'm very happy to do that.
Thank you so much, Lili. We will definitely stay in touch. If you all want to see more about Lili's product and want to get a hold of her, playrethink.com. Take a look around the website. I'd be happy to connect you with Lili if you would like to know more and ask questions. Lili, thanks so much for being with us today. I look forward to kind of seeing your journey continue.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, of course. We'll talk soon, okay?
Okay.